Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Want a billion-dollar business idea? Just give customers what they want and nothing more, says our guest, Steve Wunker, author of Costovation. Steve, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks very much, Bill.
Now, Steve, I guess that term is certainly new to me. I would imagine most of our audience. So could you define what you mean by, that's the title of your book, but Costovation? What is that?
So we mean using the tools of innovation, not just like process improvement, but really radical innovation to look at the cost side of the business and not just the shiny new products and the revenue.
And I love the subtitle because you say meeting or exceeding customers' needs with less. I mean, we often think of give them some more, add extra waiters, tablecloths, more forks, more knives, the bells and whistles. But you're saying with less. Is that all part of this?
That's right. So, look, there's a lot of ways to cut costs, and sometimes it's behind the scenes in ways that are imperceptible to the customers. But oftentimes, it's giving them something that is simple and straightforward and convenient, but it doesn't have those bells and whistles. We do this exercise with audiences when I'm speaking, where we get them to design a gym. And they say, oh, well, it needs the jacuzzis and, it needs the monsoon showers. And you keep adding and adding and adding and adding. And then I ask them, well, what do you think are some of the features of the number one gym chain in the country measured by customer satisfaction? And they don't have any of that. It's Planet Fitness, $10 a month. But it has a laser focus on a certain customer segment. It delivers really well for that segment, and it doesn't go after the jocks and the heavy users of the equipment. And by doing that, it delights the customer, but it's also really, really economical as a business to run. They've just hit 10 million members.
And I have to tell you, I was going to ask you one of the questions to tell us about Planet Fitness. I am a member. I have been, and I want to say at least 5 years. The price hasn't gone up. The equipment is there. It's always neat, clean, well presented. And I'm saying for $10 a month, I couldn't buy the equipment and make the interest payment on it that I used. And that's just the simplest equipment, 2 or 3 of the gadgets. So to me, it's like a miracle. But someone thought of that, and obviously they must be making money on it, I guess, right?
Yeah. Hopefully I didn't offend you by saying that you're not a jock.
No, and everybody knows that. So, but
it is a simple formula, and you see this at Trader Joe's, you see it at Chipotle, you see it in JetBlue. They have a really clear focus about what they're good at and what they're not for a certain type of customer, and then they're able to just ruthlessly engineer the cost out of the model to deliver that, but nothing else.
Now, there's also another, example that you mentioned, and I hadn't heard of this, but I think it's fantastic, something called a Yotel. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yotel is, so I'm a really heavy traveler. And Yotel is built for folks like me. Certainly no jacuzzi, not even a pool, not even a gym. It is a tiny, tiny hotel room, maybe 100 square feet. No windows, but it is located in the terminal of major airports. It's in some city centers too, but the main use case for them is in airport terminals. And it delivers a quiet, soundproof room. It has a monsoon shower because it knows that its target customer really does value degriming after a long flight. It has a strong Wi-Fi signal, so it delivers well on things that the customer really cares about. But, there's no drawers and a dresser because the customer's only going to be there for 6 hours, and that's totally fine. So it is highly economical. It is a whole lot better than trying to sleep in an airport lounge, much less outside the lounge. And, because they know who they are, they forego check-in clerks and all sorts of niceties that might be assumed by other sorts of hotels. But for somebody who just values their time, they don't want to be spending the 15 minutes or half hour to go to a hotel and check in. They need every minute. The hotel delivers that.
And I think that's so perfect when you said around the airport, because someone might be there for a layover, the plane isn't taking off tonight, there's a storm, whatever, and how perfect for that, especially the business person where that time might be valuable, or a lawyer going to another state preparing for court, or a doctor or someone. What a wonderful and appropriate innovation, let's put it that way, I guess. So now I would think, though, that something like a Costovation would come up during a recession period when someone could say, okay, you can still go to the gym instead of paying $29 or $89 a month or $129, you're paying $10. Now we seem to be in pretty good times. Does that have anything to do with this?
So, I think the relevance of Costovation is there in both phases, but for different reasons. So in a recession, everybody's trying to cut costs, and not only for the business, but to make things affordable for the customer. They're not necessarily looking for the $1,000 iPhone. They're looking for things that really meet a much more constrained budget. The problem is that you don't just flick a switch and reduce 25% of your costs. It takes a while to create that model, test it out, and scale it. And so by the time a recession is hit, usually it's too late to do that, and companies are not looking for the 2-year investments. They're looking for the 2-month investments. Now, in a growth economy, though, keep in mind where the growth is. So if you look at the bottom 90% of the U.S. in terms of incomes, there has been almost no growth for that subset of consumers in their income since the 80s. It's been about 13%. For the top 10%, it's been a lot more. So there's a lot of people who are very much looking for discount solutions. This drives the phenomenal growth of dollar stores, for instance. So to deliver for them is great, and then to deliver for companies that are being pressured in their costs, either because their producer prices are going up, or there are tariffs, or there are other sorts of economic pressures on them. Being able to really deliver cost effectively makes a huge difference.
And I guess there's always people looking for low prices, and we can't knock that, because who doesn't like a low price?
Well, that's right. And, if you can differentiate yourself at the top end and you can get $1,000 selling price on your iPhone, then go for it. I'm not knocking the ability to go at the top end. But there's a lot of businesses that aren't like that. The idea from this book came to us from a Dutch chemicals company that said, look, I've read your stuff on innovation. That's great. But honestly, we are in a commodity chemical business, and salt is salt is salt. I'm not going to differentiate salt. What I need is innovation in the guts of my company to make us have a much better cost position than everybody else that's selling salt. A lot of companies are like that.
Now, Steve, I'd like to let our audience know if someone just tuned in. Today we're speaking with Stephen Wunker, Wonker. His book is Costovation. It sounds like cost and vacation, but it's Costovation. And Steve, would you tell us where we can find out more? Is there a website and where we can get the book?
You bet. So our website for the book is costovation.com, and you can download a free chapter there. You can download some tools for the book as well. The book is available at every Hudson News. Actually, they put it right in the front, which is a nice gesture of support from them. We're also at Barnes & Noble, and of course we're on Amazon, both as a hard copy book and as a Kindle edition, and very soon as an audiobook as well.
I love those audiobooks because sometimes you're driving around, you're playing them, or you put them on the earphones and you can listen to them. So people on a plane, if you're getting that Hudson News or you're sitting around thinking, what am I going to do with my time? Just one or two of these ideas, how you might change the way your business is run, and it can put you ahead of everybody else in your area, region, state, and you're the first one who thought of this and did a little math, and you got some great ideas in there. Now, Steve, you mentioned this about healthcare. You say we're used to paying high amounts for treating people, but the healthcare industry now is looking for us to pay lower sums, but and actually paying them to keep people healthy. Can you tell us how that's working?
So this is the big urgency with a lot of healthcare companies. They're not necessarily seeking to make the customer happier, although that would be nice. What they really need to do is keep the lid on costs. So some organizations like Kaiser Permanente mainly in California and some other pockets of the U.S. too, have been at the vanguard of that movement. And they've been investing in not just sick care, but well care. How do they keep people well, cognizant about their conditions really at the outset, coordinating things much better among physicians so that you don't get tested and tested again and tested again, but that there's a coherence to the delivery so that not only are the physicians on the same page, but the patient is too, and they can become a prime actor in doing the things that will keep them healthy and avoiding those really lengthy hospitalizations, which are a huge driver of healthcare costs.
And we all love to hear that because anything, of course, that's going to keep our costs down and also keep us healthier and that people are watching out for it makes a win-win for everybody. Now, I think it was on page 12 in your book, you talk about 3 traits for Costovation. Can you tell us what somebody should be looking for there in those traits?
Right. So, look, throughout the book, we've got over 100 examples, but we also try to generalize from those examples at sort of the major patterns that we're seeing. So in those 3 traits, we see people have a breakthrough perspective on the market. They do something that nobody else is doing. They play asymmetrically, whether it's focusing on a certain customer or a new delivery model. They create that breakthrough perspective. That's number 1. Number 2 is that they then have this relentless focus. It could be on a cost driver. It could be on a customer segment. And they use that focus to drive trade-off decisions so that they are still delighting their target customer. We're not talking about cheapening the experience, but we're talking about really satisfying them deeply while also delivering on that focal area. And then third, they're willing to blur the boundaries. I mean, they're not just looking at the product, although the product often matters, but they're looking at their ecosystem of suppliers and partners. They're looking at the logistics and the delivery mechanism and the way things are sold. Really cutting across things, not just in silos, but, for instance, if we can simplify our product, does that then make it not only cheaper to make, but also to sell? And if it makes it cheaper in those respects, then is it also cheaper to source the components of it as well? So they look in this integrative way that a lot of big companies, particularly big companies, just aren't set up naturally to do unless they're chartered from on high to do it.
Now, Steve, is there actually, like we think of a marketing, accounting, HR department, is there a Costovation department, or is this something that's an offshoot? Once in a while the marketing department or the PR department might get a great idea and come in and say, I just noticed something. Why don't we do thus and so, the inexpensive gym for $10 a month or something like the Yotel? Who comes up, what division or how does this work in the real world?
It's a great question, Bill. So, in product development, there is usually a product development process, and there is an owner of product development. But nobody owns the business model innovation department, right? Except at a few notable companies like Medtronic. You don't usually have that. And the genesis of this is typically in general managers who say, well, look, I've got a cost issue. So, I'm not looking for bells and whistles. I'm looking for something that is a step change in costs. And then sort of by its nature, you have to enlist people cross-functionally to really look rigorously at all the cost levers, question some long-standing assumptions, and make those hard decisions. If it's just product development, people are going to rebel, and they'll say, well, that's not how we do things. And that's right. That's not how you do things. That's why it's going to be a radical step change in cost. But the general manager, the company president, the founder, the CEO, whatever, they've got the mandate to look at the business as a whole.
Steve, at this point in the show, we're going to take a brief break, and I want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. The show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll be right back after this brief break.
I'm a college student and could use advice about